And then there is the box that Euan left. Euan, who spent one whole night here, came back once a month for a while, and then a year later went off with a key because he couldn't remember where he lived or even apparently who we were. Open the box and you will find housing benefit forms, state loans from social funds, prospectuses for courses that were never finished, letters from solicitors, envelopes addressed to different addresses, forms, half-filled in forms, and then the address of this house. Most striking, perhaps, are the photographs of the child that the child Euan had fathered, a lock of his son's hair in a shiny box, a picture even in a frame of his child, the child's drawings, incredible as it seemed that one so utterly young even for youth, and so completely innocent in a way, could have a charge younger even than himself already. I passed him once outside the playgroup. All the mothers were standing there waiting for their offspring, and there also was Euan, gaunt almost to the point of illness, looking 16, his face like cut glass, but so weathered and lined it was obviously the product of the hardest of childhoods and constant living out of doors, but a face so narrow, sharp and well defined that it ought to have been handsome. With hate tattooed across his knuckles, and many other tattoos and piercings of the aggressive rather than the ornamental variety. His clothes hanging off him like an anorexic tramp. Tall and looking taller for such narrowness, he stood out like a scarecrow in a field of sheep. He never came to spend another night at his own home, because, despite being split up and thrown out by his girlfriend, he was always babysitting. There are birthday cards in the box, and a whole magazine devoted to propaganda for the hunt saboteur, which is what he used to introduce himself as being. "I've given the system a good kicking," he said once. To look into his half-ruined face, one could see that the system must have kicked back very hard. 5 years living on the streets leaves its mark. It was the kind of face to break a heart. So pathetic it was, the time he went to the corner shop and was reported as a man with a gun because he used to hold his sleeves over his hands at the ends of his long arms to hide the tattoos instinctively, and he wasn't known as someone who lived nearby because he rarely did. And a short time later out came the police helicopters circling half the night. How crazy and wrong! I wished I could have held aloft a sign. "It's only a child 3/4 grown, whom the system has failed," for which read society. The box, and strangely enough it has phone messages in it, from myself and others whose handwriting I recognise. I find them oddly poignant. Some of the birthday cards have lewd jokes and affectionate messages. Unexpectedly, why unexpected? People are complicated. There are some tasteful prints of classical paintings, including a dark and tranquil still life of a cup. Then national insurance contribution certificates from years before, so much bureaucracy, and, most tellingly, papers to do with a claim to the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority. His name amongst his friends is Spider. "Why your benefit has been stopped. Your council tax debts are... Thank you for your inquiry about an access course. We are delighted that you have opened an account with NatWest. If you want to know more about this decision or you think it is wrong... Petty looking, deductions from your allowance, and so many, you must notify us of any changes, forms, for rent benefits, council tax benefits, unemployment benefits." The Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority was to do with his childhood. born into sorrow, allotted to parents cruel out of either being unable to cope or not having wanted the children, or just out of brutality, fashioned perhaps from their own experiences, who knows. His father and stepmother ill-treated Euan and his brother shamefully. Always cold with never enough to eat, they were beaten, waterboarded even, laughed at as they were almost drowned. It sounds like something out of Arthur Morrison's Tales of Mean Streets. But these were here and now people, parents, modern parents, like the ones you pass in the street. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. And Euan, the 2/3 grown child Euan, was trying to make sense of the terrible things that had happened, of how and why his awful parents had treated them so badly, of how come the social services had not intervened sooner, and how in the world instead it had put them both into such a home away from their mother, so wildly inappropriate, that his brother was murdered by wilful cruelty and shocking neglect, of how he and his brother had been failed so completely. So he was trying to get together a claim for compensation from the council involved, the authorities responsible. Here in this box are the bits and pieces of the information and the documents that he had managed to gather. There is a typed document of his horrifying testimony. And here the claim ended. It was clear that the task was too difficult, too harsh on the spirit, too painful to reopen, becoming also unbearable that he couldn't stand it, that the more he found out or thought about it, the worse the burden became, that this claim for compensation was never going to be put through, he wasn't going to finish it, that that money, so richly deserved, will never be his. Here the claim lies, in a sturdy box ironically labelled "A gift for you," mixed with tubes of paint, letters from his friends, a slate coaster and other detritus of his belongings. I could never bring myself to throw it away. For what if his son, now grown up, ever came looking for it?